Greetings once again as we continue talking about freshness that is experienced through positive interaction in an ideal environment. I thought today it's important for us as we continue talking about the aspect of freshness under YOWADI to talk about this whole aspect of the ideal environment that we've mentioned. Last time I brought out the aspect of efficient realization experience under an ideal environment over an adequate period of time. But all this really has to do with positive interaction as brought out earlier. In other words, it is an issue of human beings interacting with each other, associating with each other, and having an effect upon each other's lives. And so when we talk of an ideal environment, as mentioned in one of the presentations, we are really talking about people interacting with each other and having a good effect on each other. And this, therefore, is not an issue of an environment in terms of the trees, the sky, the soil, and the air. But when we talk of an environment, we are really talking about the people that you are interacting with. Those make up an important environment that you need to consider. Now, the question that each one of us needs to ask ourselves, not only as a therapist or a client or a patient, but the fact that you are a human being, what effect are you having on the environment? In other words, what effect are you having on those you are interacting with? Is it a positive effect or negative effect? And that's an important aspect to look at because it has to deal with a relationship that you actually create. And this brings us back to what we at one time talked about in terms of emotional health and emotional intelligence. And so in building up relationships, we're saying it's important for us to have emotional health, which eventually leads to emotional intelligence. And this has to do with us understanding our own emotions as well as those of the people that we are interacting with. Now, in a home setup, for example, which we had brought out as the basic unit of society, that's where people are built from. That's where they are nurtured from. That's where they are brought up in. And so the way we interact in the home as the basic unit of society determines how we interact ultimately out there in society with everybody else, whether on the streets, at our workplaces, in our schools, and so on. And so the home as basic unit of society is an important institution, not just a place in terms of a building, which we call a house, but it's an institution that has to do with people interacting with each other. And these are therefore emotionally attached. They are exchanging, they are nurturing each other, right? And therefore it has to do with the positive interaction that we are talking about. And so in building up society through this aspect of freshness, which we talked about as something that comes by inner healing, renewal of the mind, and discovery of self-identity, the home plays an important part as basic unit of that society. That's where the nurturing aspect starts from. That's where the building up of the individual starts from. The emotional health starts from the building up of a positive interaction or relationship in the home, which is the place where nurturing takes place. So when we talk of natural mind setting through psychotherapy, let's talk or think about the home as a place where nurturing takes place. That's a place where psychotherapy actually takes place. So it's a new view of psychotherapy, in other words. In other words, this is not just something that you go and have, or a session that you have when you go to a clinic, a clinical psychologist or a counseling psychologist. But we are now saying that each one of us, as we interact, have a therapeutic effect on each other right in the home. And therefore, we are built up into whatever it is that we become because of the kind of environment that we're exposed to due to either a negative or positive psychotherapeutic environment right in the homes that we are nurtured from. And therefore, let's have a new view of what psychotherapy is all about and understand this important natural mind setting aspect through psychotherapy, we'll move on and talk more about this whole aspect of the importance of psychotherapy. Let's look at it from a new point of view. It's not something that we just go and get at a clinical place in a hospital or at a surgery or a psychologist's counseling center, but the home itself, as a basic unit of society, is a place where you can be nurtured or built up into what you are supposed to become. All right, now, the ideal environment that we've been talking about under YOWADI is the fact that each individual needs a different environment for them to be built up into what they ought to be. And this is why it is important for you to understand the particular environment that you as an individual really are comfortable with, you are at home with. And therefore, home, in this case, is a term that we should also now begin to look at more seriously as an institution, as well as an environment that you are comfortable with, where you are able to express yourself as who you are, and therefore receive the inner healing, the renewal of the mind, and the discovery of self-identity. Thank you.